Hey there, TNA fam. We're back here at the Impact Zone podcast, talking more TNA wrestling shenanigans. And today, well, there's a couple of people that have had their contracts with AEW expire, and I want to talk about the likelihood of Matt Taven and Mercedes Martinez coming to TNA. So, I believe that Matt and Martinez were both in TNA before, so I feel like their potential to come to TNA is quite a lot more great than what people perhaps think. I know Mercedes was like um, only there for a cup of coffee and whatnot, but she was there for a short period of time. And I think she fitted in well with the knockouts division. I mean, she wasn't really doing a whole lot, but she was certainly fitting in well, and I think that they had some stuff for her. But the fact that that AEW came back knocking was like, well, now they're offering her more money over there, and I think I think they only really offered her more money to go back to AEW because she was with AEW before, or was doing stuff with AEW, much like I think Matt Cardona or perhaps whatever, I don't know. Um, but they saw her over there in TNA doing stuff, and they were like, "Oh, well, we can't let her potentially sign with them or whatever. We've got to sign her up." Um, so they went and signed her up. She went to proceed to basically just be a mentor and lose to everyone over there in AEW. She never really did anything very much, I don't think, from memory or from anyone saying anything. I don't think she really had any big time feuds or big time stories. And it's been a long time since she's been over there. She never really did anything over there. So, like, I think she'd be a good pickup for TNA. Like, it is tough because it is, like, you've got a few women on the roster now, um, and some of them aren't really doing a whole lot. I feel like she might fall into that role of she wouldn't do a whole lot, but she'd be a good hand to have around to help with building up some of the talent and help, put over some of the talent because realistically, she's needed for a short period of time in some ways to help build the roster, I think. But I don't really think she'd be like that useful long term. Maybe as a mentor, maybe as like backstage, I think she could do a lot more, but I don't think she has much more that she can do as a wrestler. Which kind of sucks for her because she's pretty cool, she's pretty awesome. She's really underrated, and actually, that's what I feel like. She should come back doing if she's going to come back doing something, because you want to start her off hot and saying, "Hey, let's bring her in and have this whole idea of, well, she never really achieved anything, but she's so underrated, so she wants to prove that she's the top, she's at that top 1% or the top 1% or whatever. So that's what we're going to do with her or whatever." But yeah, I could see her certainly being like a manager or just a tag team specialist or whatever. Perhaps that would be a better role for her. There, I mean, you could say that she could go to WWE. Every single person that we talk about, obviously, you could say they could go to WWE, but she wouldn't do much better. She'd probably be way worse off going to WWE. Yes, maybe NXT, she could do some more stuff, but like she wouldn't really do a whole lot on the main roster. So I think going to TNA and just being there and helping other people kind of get to WWE or AEW or just get better in general would be a better fit for her. So yeah. With Matt Taven, I'm always asking the question, is Mike Bennett on the way? So perhaps he is, perhaps he isn't. Like, him and Bennett were in TNA what was it, like a few years ago, and again they were doing stuff. Actually, they were doing stuff for a fair while in TNA. Um, as the tag team. Well, I can't remember what the Pinnacle was, that their name, I think. Um, and the whole Honor No More stuff, they were doing that stuff. Um, so I think I don't know whether you would wait for Bennett. I don't know, but like, yeah, they were both signed up relatively around the same time to in TNA, and they were both like leaving at basically the same time from TNA to go to AEW. I don't think they were actually signed. I think they maybe had a short-term contract or maybe just a handshake agreement or something. But again, AEW was like, oh shit, these guys are actually doing something in TNA. We've got to stop that. Like, let's buy them up and make sure that TNA doesn't have access to them. Plus, we're doing this whole Ring of Honor thing or whatever it is, and we're buying up Ring of Honor, so we want as many Ring of Honor guys as what we can get our hands on. So, and like TNA was like in a very similar position. I think they kind of wanted to kind of have this whole Ring of Honor thing because they had, like, Ring of Honor and TNA had a lot of history, and I think they kind of wanted to do the same thing and have maybe like Ring of Honor be not their second brand, but like their second brand kind of thing, like that, or like the NWO sort of thing. Like they were actually a proper company and they would shoot off from TNA again, kind of thing, from being just an invading force or whatever. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. But much like Mercedes, Matt and Mike Bennett, they both really didn't do a whole lot in AEW or Ring of Honor over there in AEW. They had that whole big faction reveal with what's his name? Adam Cole being the devil and whatnot, and them being in that faction that he was. I can't even remember the name of the faction because it was like a really long, complicated name or whatever it was. But yeah, they were in that faction. That was like the biggest thing that I think that they did, and that fizzled out in a few weeks because Adam Cole got injured and stuff happened and whatnot. So it's not like they didn't have plans for them or whatever at some point, but I don't, even if they had plans for them, they were more just background, like, support characters. They were never like the main act, or it felt like they were never going to be like the focus of the tag team division or whatever else it was. Even in Ring of Honor, like I don't know whether they won the Ring of Honor titles during this run. I can't remember. Like, I don't know, but whatever. It is whatever it is. I think did somebody say that what's her name? Melina, not Melina. What's her name? What's her bloody name? Ah. Oh my god, my brain. I can't think of her name. I'm just thinking of Melina. But it's like Melina. It starts with an M. I can't think of her name. I'm looking it up. Maria, that was it. I can't think sometimes. My brain is just so. Anyway, yeah, but didn't somebody say that she's like gone and got pregnant again? I think somebody said that she was also released like a little while back or something. I think, and maybe Mike was also like released. I'm not too sure. But yeah, I don't really know. So yeah, maybe they were, maybe they weren't. Maybe she just had a baby or whatever it was, and there was the idea that she was perhaps coming to the end of her contract or whatever it was, same sort of thing. So again, like when these contracts ellipse or whatever, it kind of shows you that there's not much interest, even in somebody just being like on the roster or being a job person or whatever. But it also, like, just from the company's standpoint, perhaps. But like, it also comes from the talent. It comes from the talent because the talent have to, you know, basically agree to this sort of thing. That's what happened with Kazarian. Like, Kazarian was there, they were going to renew him, and then he said, "Oh, no, I don't want that. Let me just roll off and I'll go somewhere else because you guys, you're just using me in a certain role and I want to challenge myself and be in another role. And if you guys don't really see me in that role, hey, well, thank you so much for, and no disrespect to them. This happens in WWE, this happens in TNA, it happens everywhere. But I'm just saying, what's the opportunity for TNA? Now, again, I will say that you don't want to sign literally everyone on day one or whatever it is. And they literally just signed up BDE, which I think is a good addition to the X division. But I think he can be an all-round player in the tag division as well. Or even a bit player in the international title division. I don't know, or just have some like feuds for a while or whatever else as well. Especially if he wants to be a more full-time wrestler or whatever. Yeah. But I can see Matt or even Mike coming into this new role with the system perhaps. They've already got a lot of connections with Eddie, so you could say that makes some amount of sense. Plus he's kind of a tag team guy, you know. So I said before, you might want to focus on the younger guys with like bringing somebody into that role, but maybe that's not what you need. I'm not sure. It's tough because like the whole idea that I had with bringing somebody into that position that was younger was that it's a chance to elevate them. It's a chance to put them on par with, Moose and Eddie, like being, you know, or try to put them on that level, you know. But if you have somebody like Matt or Mike in that position, you can use them to help elevate the talent that are outside of the group, that are more so going to be stars in their own right or whatever else. Whereas Mike and Matt here are kind of like, they've kind of had their opportunities to be stars. Yes, they can be a tag team and an important tag team, but I don't really see them breaking out at this point in their career. Not to say that they can't, but I really don't see that it would happen. I just see that they would be guys that are people that are there to help put other guys over, more or less. And that's mostly like what JDC's role was. He was just a guy for the most part to put other guys over. So somebody coming in to fill that same role feels like very much the same thing. So that might feel like, oh, what are we doing this for? But it makes perfect sense for who he's kind of replacing. So again, it's not like it's a big glamorous role or whatever for either of these two people that would potentially be coming in, but they're fairly big names in some regard. And like you've got Vincent and Dutch, Vincent being another member of the Honor No More and the Ring of Honor faction that basically, they came into TNA a couple of years ago or whatever it was and whatnot, and they did that whole run, and then AEW decided to sign them up, and then it was like, again, oh, well, we don't know what to really do with these guys. They're just kind of here, and they're doing stuff, and they exist, and yeah, they're not the superstars of the division, so we don't really care, and we're not really gonna try too hard, and we're not really gonna put them in too many stories, and they're just like here and that's it. And I get, again, like, you need guys that are just like hands that help the other people kind of thing, but it is still like you need to try with them and you need to say, okay, cool, well, what is their story? Because if their story is they're jobbers, then they're just jobbers. You know what I mean? You've got to have something for them to work with and something for them to achieve, or something for them to kind of motivate them. You know what I mean? Because if they just lose all the time, then it's like this should be affecting them as characters, unless they're literally just jobbers, in which case it still should affect them realistically. But still, like, yeah. Um, if that's the role you've got them in, it has to be something more. Like, again, you've got to use these guys to help elevate other people, but you've got to use them to have their own thing, because otherwise they just feel like, oh, well, never mind. No one should care about these guys. That's what gets extra investment in people when they are feeling like just jobbers, is that little bit of an interview, that little bit of like, rah rah rah, this is what we're fighting for. What we've got to win, whatever it is. If we can't win, what are we going to do? We seemingly can't win. Why can't we win? What's wrong with us? We've lost a step somewhere or something, these sorts of things. Is it you? Is it me? Whatever, like, not just teasing breakups or whatever and anything, but it's like, what, going back to the drawing stick, remembering, hey, wait a minute. We're asking if it's us. Well, it's the competition that we're facing, We are facing some of the best in the world. And we're just on a bad streak of losses. We're one of the best tag teams in the world. All this is like also building up those other teams when you're doing this sort of stuff, saying, hey, this is a competitive division, and anyone can beat anyone on any night, and we can beat these people, even if they're some of the best teams in the world or whatever, because we're one of the best teams in the world. We've just had a string of bad luck, or whatever it is. All this sort of thing. So, again, yeah, I feel like he could fit into that role. I wouldn't really see him in a singles role. If he's gonna be in a role, he'd be in a role of, someone that, is either a tag team person or maybe like another like lower card job guy, basically, like as a single star. I don't really see that you could use him as a major player. I mean, maybe he's got a big chip on his shoulder and he wants to prove that wrong. I'd love for him to come out and prove that wrong, but like, we don't know that that's going to happen, so we'll wait and see. Like, I initially see him in a certain role, so that's at least where I think he could be. Like, even if he's in the system and he's more used as that job guy, you could say that he could break out still. There's still that potential for him. And anyone, same thing. But the problem I feel like is, like I said it before, is like, if he's coming, is Mike coming? And will that be like becoming like too many people like floating around, whether they're in the system or whether they're not or whatever, sort of thing, if he's going to be in the system. So I don't really know. But then again, you're like, Brian is in the similar position as JDC. I feel like he's looking to retire at some point soonish, maybe, who knows, but he's in a certain role as well. So it's like, well, at a certain point, it is time to say, okay, cool. Maybe it's time just to be, a manager or something else, or a commentator or something else. I don't know. So, yeah, let's just do that, or let's more be somebody's heater or something. I don't know, something like that. so that he's doing something else, because again, you've only got so many guys that can be in that role for so long, because it's like at a certain point no one cares anymore, because well, we know what role you're serving. So at that point, like even when you make something into a new gimmick sort of thing, it's like, well, this is a fresh coat of paint to keep things fresh for a little while, or whatever it is, you know. But at the same point, it's like, yeah, well, if things continue this way, people will go, well, you're just in the same role in a different position, you know. And ultimately, like, obviously, we're proven right in that. But yeah, and there's only so many people that can be the superstar, can be the focal point. And like, they had a good focal point being in the tag team division, but they were ultimately there to put other people over. They weren't the superstars. They were the guys to hold the belts and lose them to other people that were going to be, you know, the major players or whatever, and feud with the major players or whatever. Not major players, the tag team, not Brian Myers and Matt Cardona. It'd be really weird for Brian Myers to be facing Brian Myers. Like, which one of us is gonna chop? I don't know, but yeah, like, yeah, I see him in that role. So very much, I see him in the role that JDC is now kind of occupying. So it just makes sense for you to kind of put him in that role, I think. So yeah, but then again, like, you could find somebody else. I don't know. So, but yeah, whoever's got to, either you've got to fill the role that was already kind of there, or you've kind of, like, that's why I was thinking Funaki could be a good addition, but because he's like a job guy effectively, and that would give him an extra profile, and he's a younger guy, and it would give him like a boost to kind of be in that faction. um you know, but then again, you know, do you want him to I don't know, not just do it, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know whether he's signed, man, but he probably will be. Actually, somebody said that the Andersons, CW Anderson and Brock Anderson, were in AEW or Ring of Honor, which is in AEW effectively because they own Ring of Honor. But yeah, I don't know about that. Maybe I like, if somebody says that they were whatever, cool, yeah, whatever. I don't know. That's what I mean by saying, you know, Ring of Honor, they have their fans and whatever else, but like, and like, they certainly have that, but it's like they have a very like low window, and not many people are really aware of what's going on there, because a lot of it just feels like it's the D show. So, and that sucks for them, but you know, like, it is what it is. Plus again, they only pull in like a certain amount of fans because they're really focused into what they're focused into, which is, you know, fine. So yeah, but anyway, guys, those are my thoughts on this at the moment. Obviously, if Bennett comes off contract as well or whatever, we might be talking about him, but like, he'll be in the very similar position. And I feel like if he comes off contract with AEW or Ring of Honor or whatever, same thing effectively, he'll be in a very similar position. He'll just probably come to work with Mike, and they'll just be a tag team that's just, you know, lower guys that win, you know, few matches or whatever, and only are there to put others over. Unless like they really like pull their finger out and, you know, they're you know, like the Miracle Mike Bennett gimmick, people remember that, you know, like maybe you could go back to that. I don't know. So there's always a chance for anyone to do anything, or you could, reinvent yourself or whatever else. But like right now, that's where you would be seen. So that's the position that I would see them, unfortunately, in, or whatever. And if that's not what they want to do, or if they want to prove themselves, hey, they can still do that. So yeah. But anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this one, and I hope you will join me again in another one.